Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is my review of the Grey Ghost Precision Specter Light 5.56 rifle. Now for features, the Specter Light is very well equipped. Magpul furniture, battle arms development selector, it's got an ambidextrous bolt release, billet upper, billet lower, 7-sided key mod rail, which is actually really nice because if you're going to get your gun hot when you shoot, it's nice to be able to add more heat protection, heat guards, like I'm using rail scales, and I'm able to fill in the gaps a little bit better so I don't get as much heat transferring from the barrel to the rail to my hand. 16-inch 1-8 barrel, and this one came with the Lantac Dragon. For this review, started off with iron sights and an aim point, and later on I switched to 1-4 power Trijicon AccuPower. Reason I did that is because while we can be accurate with a 2 MOA aim point or a 1 MOA RMR, it's nice to be able to add a variable magnification optic, especially this one, mil reticle, to allow me to more objectively gauge the accuracy of the rifle. Now, standard review, I pre-lubricated with Fire Clean like I always do, and then I ran the gun 2,000 rounds. Throughout the review process, not a single malfunction, which is exactly what I expected. This day and age with modern manufacturing, and I know I've said this before in other reviews, I don't expect to have a malfunction. I don't expect to be able to induce a malfunction using the rifle in the same way that you are going to use it or anyone else are going to use it. It was run hard, it was run actually really hard, but it wasn't run unrealistically. I can make any rifle fail if I make the test so unrealistic that no weapon is going to pass it. Drag it behind a truck, bury it in 10 feet of mud. There's definitely ways to get weapons to fail, but they're so far outside of the realm of realism that I wouldn't expect any rifle to be able to meet that benchmark. Now, what don't I like about the rifle? Let's talk about that. I have to say that throughout the review process, throughout the 2,000 rounds fired, my consistent problem was the charging handle. This is their Slide Lock LS400. It's a proprietary charging handle, and under heavy fire, it does come unlatched. It'll bounce back in your face. Not a huge issue, really isn't. I've had it happen on other rifles before, and it's not something that really bothers me. It may bother you, which is something to concern yourself with. It's a small part, it's easily replaced. You can throw it, I'm sure you have a mil-spec laying around, you can just throw it right in there, you won't have the problem anymore. It's an ambidextrous charging handle, which is really nice. It is a very unique design, which I think spring tension inside the charging handle is actually causing the problem because of the way that this works, and I'm going to show you a close-up of it here in a second. But it does work unlike any other charging handle I've used in the past, and I think that might be a design weak point. But again, very, very small issue. It's not that big of a deal. It may pop back and hit you in the nose, but it's not going to do it with such force it's going to cause you any kind of injury. Multiple times I had it come loose and just kind of pop on me a little bit where I could see it in my peripheral vision, and a few times it actually came back and tapped me in the nose, but again, even under heavy fire, it wasn't so significant that it actually caused me to lose my objective focus on the threat. One thing I definitely noticed was about that third mag, the charging handle just kept popping. So it was bouncing back the whole time, and at some point my rear sights flipped up, my front sights flipped up. I don't think that's so much a recoil issue as it's just a constant motion issue. Yeah. But this does bother me a little bit, just because, I mean, it obviously doesn't interfere with my ability to shoot, but this thing was clacking the whole time. It just kept doing that. So this is what I'm talking about. Most charging handles have a latch release. There's some kind of lever in there that you pull on, and it causes a release of the latch catch on the upper receiver. This one does not. It's internal. So when you apply enough pressure on this unmovable handle, it causes the latch to release from the catch on the upper receiver, and you're able to charge the weapon. Under reciprocation of the bolt carrier group, it hits with enough force to occasionally cause it to pop out of pocket all on its own without you physically grabbing it. So you'll see in the video, and I'll show you specifically, how it does pop, pop, pop as you're shooting. And the harder you are on the gun, the faster you're firing, the more likely it is to come further and further back. Not a huge issue, again, something replaceable, and a lot of rifles ship with a mil spec anyway, so it's something we throw away or throw in the box or throw in the build bin or whatever, and we throw in our own preferred. I know my preferred charging handles, they vary from rifle to rifle, but it's not that big of a deal, all things considered. Now, my favorite feature hands down is the ambidextrous release. It's not an ambidextrous lock release, which is unfortunate, but it is an ambidextrous release, and it's not in a position like you see on some other rifles where it's in a position that actually makes it difficult to get to with the index, the trigger finger. This one is positioned just rear and just higher of the magazine release, so it's a simple movement to hit it without having to change the angle of your grip so much that it's uncomfortable. Some other ambi lowers I've seen, the release itself was actually, you had to apply so much pressure to get the bolt to drop that I just wouldn't use it. On this one, really nice, really easy. You don't have to apply a lot of downward pressure because it is kind of difficult with your hand grip in this position to apply a lot of pressure. So I'm more likely to use this, and I did use it quite a bit, just because it's so convenient and it's so easy to use and you don't have to apply a lot of pressure. Another great feature, mid-length gas system, and I'm going to show you the recoil. Recoil control on this rifle is really excellent. Of course, the Lantac Dragon definitely helps with that, but overall the recoil pulse is soft and it stays really, really flat. Now, the Specter light has the ideal configuration for good recoil. A mid-length gas system to prevent overgassing the gun, which increases felt recoil, a heavy BCG and rail to absorb energy, and a good muzzle device to help direct muzzle gases to keep the muzzle down. The recoil pulse is soft and direct to the rear. The weight of the rifle overall helps with management of the pulse, allowing faster reacquiring of desired point of impact under fast fire, and a fast settling rifle when looking for precision shots with red dot and magnified optics. Now, to really push the bounds of reliability, functional repeatability, I like to do what I call the burn down. It's something I've started doing on my rifle reviews. I set aside 500 rounds of whatever. In this case, it was 55 grain Wolf Military Classic. And put that 500 rounds into magazines, and I fired magazine after magazine after magazine after magazine as fast as I could. I fired all 500 rounds in a very, very short period of time. And then I let the gun cool all day. Got it to ambient temperature, immediately threw a mag in it, and checked it. When that carbon cools, it starts to harden, and it can actually cause the gun to seize up. Either the bolt carrier group itself will seize in the barrel, or the cam will seize as the rifle's trying to reciprocate, or maybe the extractor will seize, depending on where your huge carbon buildup is. I wasn't able to induce a malfunction on the Grey Ghost Precision Specter light when I did that, and then later on, just through incidental shooting, I was firing, repeated magazines, 300, 400 rounds, and it got to cool again because range day was over. Went home. It sat in the safe for 4 days, and then it was back to the range to finish up this review. First round out of the gun, not a single problem. That's attributable to the precision and the tolerances. It's also attributable to Fire Clean, which is an excellent lubrication, and it definitely aids in repeatability of the rifle system and aids in keeping that carbon from getting to such a hard caked point that it's going to cause the weapon to malfunction. It's getting hot. Dude, thing's gotta be hot. Super hot. So fucking hot. .402, not bad. 519 at the muzzle. Now, what about spec and reliability? You guys have seen my other rifle reviews, you know I like to do spec and reliability. Well, what is spec and reliability? Spec, concerning the lower receiver, especially with billets, I usually have a concern that the tolerances are a little bit out of whack for a wide degree of magazines. On this review, I used HK Steel, USGI, and a lot of PMags, different PMags. Obviously, all PMags are pretty much in spec with each other, so that wasn't an issue. No real issues. I didn't have any magazines that just refused to drop free. I've gotten into the habit of, when I reload, just reflexively, as my hand comes off the grip and as I come back to get my magazine from wherever I'm carrying it, I usually just swipe that magazine anyway, so I don't have to do a flip or anything like that. Doesn't mean it won't drop free, and you'll see in the video that, you know, they drop free just fine. That's as far as spec is concerned. Obviously, tolerances, head spacing was great on this rifle. I always head space everything I get before I shoot it. Head space was in check. Lockup's good. No issues, obviously no malfunctions. And everything works together. It's not a rattle trap. Everything fits really, really well, but the tolerances are loose enough that you don't have to fight with the gun to strip it down if you have to, which is definitely a big plus. You don't want to be on the range and have a malfunction, you know, you got to remove your upper receiver for some reason and you're not able to physically push the pins with your thumbs. Like, that's a big problem for me. Rifle should be tight on tolerances, but not so tight that I cannot disassemble, at least to a certain level, with my bare hands. Grey Ghost Precision chose to go with the Mega Arms single stage 4.5 pound trigger. I'd heard about it, and I'd heard some bad things and I heard some good things from other shooters that I know, my peers. But I wanted to keep an open mind, and when I first got the trigger, probably the first 300 rounds I wasn't really hot. I didn't really like it that much, but it kind of grew on me. It's definitely a pound heavier than I like. I like 3.5 single stage flat profile triggers. I'm a huge CMC fan, but I'm not doing a comparison between the two triggers. This trigger for this rifle is excellent. Even though it's a single stage, even when shooting out to 300 meters on steel, no issues. Pull was clean and crisp all the way through. There was no hesitation, no graininess at the beginning, no graininess at the end. The trigger runs consistently, which is really nice. It's not a drop-in trigger system. It works just like a traditional trigger system does. The profile is nice, and the trigger's got a lot of weight to it, which is really nice for a single stage. Sometimes single stage triggers, the actual trigger body itself can be too light, and it causes inconsistency in your pull. It allows too much play in the gun, and it actually it prevents you from having that constant feeling of pressure on the trigger itself. The trigger should have some weight to it, especially if it's going to be a heavier trigger. It's going to be 4.5 pound like this Mega Arms is. Aesthetically, it's pretty pleasing. It looks really cool. Obviously, that's like way down the list on my list of priorities for what a trigger should be. But it does add to the overall aesthetics of the rifle, which is important for some people. Eventually, it's important for all of us because we like our stuff to look good. But we want it to work first, and we want it to work reliable. And this trigger definitely covers the basis as far as performance goes. You're able to run it fast and in more of a close quarter situation. And for accuracy, I didn't really have any issues with the trigger itself shooting out 300 meters, which is as far as I was able to shoot this rifle during the review process. So what about accuracy? Is the Grey Ghost Precision Specter Light an accurate rifle? Let's take a look. 2,000 rounds fired. This is the last 5 rounds out of the rifle you're going to see. I went for an accuracy group, 100 meters on the Trijicon AccuPower 1-4. Granted, 4 power magnification isn't ideal for 100 meter shooting, but it gets the job done. Now again, this is the inherent tolerances and precision of the rifle itself, and it's also my shooting ability. It's going to be subjective, but this will give you a really good idea of after 2,000 rounds of, I fired PMC, I fired Wolf, fired Tula, and I also fired Grey Ghost precision ammo. I believe everything was 55 grain. But this gives you an idea of how precise the rifle can be at 100 meters after basically a very hard run gun. So, final verdict. What do I think of the Grey Ghost Precision? MSRP is $1,900. I think the industry is starting to get used to it. It is unfortunate that your mid-level rifles and some of your higher-end rifles have come to that price point. I remember my first AR was $450. But things increase in price, and if you want precision, you want repeatability, you want reliability, you're going to have to spend a little bit more money anyway, or you're going to take a $600 gun and put $1,000 worth of parts into it. At the end of the day, I think $1,900 is very worth it. I consider it to be, a mid to high level rifle. It comes with some great accessories that usually increase the price point beyond that $1,900. And all things considered, it does exactly what a rifle should do. It works like a rifle should work. Now granted, I only fired 2,000 rounds through it. It would be kind of impractical for me to hold on to this thing for 3 or 4 years and then come back to you and be like, hey, I fired 17 or 18,000 rounds. Or fire 17 or 18,000 rounds over a period of a weekend is a little outside of the realm of realism. I think 2,000 rounds is a lot more than a lot of other guys shoot when they do the reviews. Nothing wrong with that, because sometimes it's not the round count, but it's actually the demonstration of the rifle's features and its reliability, its repeatability, its precision. So yeah, the price point is a little high compared to some other guns, but you're getting a lot more gun for that price. And the sticking point with most people is the price point. The rifle is already aesthetically pleasing, and it's already got a lot of great features, which I've showed you. So the final sticking point is going to be the price. Buy once, cry once. If you're looking for a precision rifle, if you're looking for an AR that's going to do all those things, intermediate range and precision shooting and things like that, you're going to have to spend a little money. So the Grey Ghost Precision is definitely a good choice when it comes to that, given all the features you're getting for the price that you're paying. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.
Oh.